Yeah, there's like potentially a unique opportunity right now with the market softening in a lot of different areas.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a bit of a buyer's opportunity. Obviously, it's still very much a seller's market in many cities.
The number of active listings. So you can see the extreme jump from December, January, February, where again, everything was about nil for inventory. At mid-February, things started jumping up pretty well after Family Day. We were seeing an increase in inventory. Then we had the interest rates increase. We've seen another flood of inventory come on. Some people are still pricing a $750,000 house at $599, getting 30 offers. That's not really changing, but the values, the sale prices are constantly staying pretty similar. When we're putting in offers, if we lose or win, we're within $10,000 to $15,000 of what we think the value is. We're not seeing that $100,000 over. It's a bit risky at this point to do that. We're seeing a lot of softening up that way, unless you've got a nice prime thing.
Welcome back to the Canadian Real Estate Investing channel for another market update. Once again, I'm Andrew Hines. I've taken over the channel for the month to do the market updates. If you don't know me, I'm a real estate investor and podcast host from Ontario. If you want to find me, you can find me on Instagram at the Andrew Hines, or you can check out my podcast on any of the podcast platforms. Just search my name, Andrew Hines, spelled Hines, and you'll find it. So this episode is a really a special one. We have an update on Barrie, which is a market I am certainly curious about. And we have Colby Marshall here to tell us all about it. And we're going to dig into quite a few statistics. I saw a glance at the presentation, and I'm looking forward to it. So Colby, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been a while since we did the stats, so I'm sure everyone's itching to know what's going on with the interest rates increase and spring coming up just around the corner.
Yeah, there's like potentially a unique opportunity right now with the market softening in a lot of different areas.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a bit of a buyer's opportunity. Obviously, it's still very much a seller's market in many cities. But why don't you go ahead and guide me through your presentation, and we'll learn more, and I'll have some more questions for you.
Yeah, sounds great. Let's dive right in. So let's start with a bit of agenda. So we're going to do stats for Barrie, Orillia, and Innisfil. These are the three key areas that we do our investing in. We're doing the duplex conversion plus a garden suite is our primary model. And then we're going to touch on a couple things to watch out for when buying. We're getting more and more red tape all the time for our investment model. So I just want to touch on a couple of things that buyers have got caught buying properties, not looking into these things. So we'll be able to help people buy more efficiently and make sure you can actually, convert your property or build the garden suite in the back. Because as everyone knows, there's been quite a few changes, and they're bringing in more red tape as well. So we're going to touch on that again as well for everybody on the channel. So we service Simcoe County area. If you look here, we're primarily in Barrie, and Orillia is up here, both waterfront communities. And Innisfil is another area that we're really looking at. Down here in this area is the New Tecumseh. We're going to touch on some great things happening in this area on this event as well. So we'll get into the stats first, starting with Barrie, of course. So this is the average sale price for detached homes. It's taken a bit of a dip from January, February. So January and February inventory was almost nil, like absolutely nothing. And we started to see an increase in inventory probably mid-February, early March. Originally, we're getting, say, 10, 12 listings a day come on between Barrie and Orillia for detached dwellings. Right now, we're up closer to 30 or 40, which is great. In a normalized market, we were seeing anywhere from 80 to 100 per day, just so you can kind of gauge COVID times to regular times. So seeing a slight decrease in price for the month of March is not unheard of. We're going to have increasing inventory for spring as well. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. Right here is the number of active listings. So you can see the extreme jump from December, January, February, where again, everything was about nil for inventory. At mid-February, things started jumping up pretty well after Family Day. We were seeing an increase in inventory. Then we had the interest rates increase. We've seen another flood of inventory come on. But now if you compare it to April 2021, which is a spring market, it doesn't look that bad. So yes, we are seeing an increase in inventory. Yes, we had the interest rates go up. But if you compare March of this year to April last year for detached homes on the market, it's not that out of whack. So we'll keep going. We'll touch a bit more on the list to sale price. So the list to sale price is people are still listing low. There's still competing offers, but it's really hit and miss right now. So if you have really nice turnkey properties, we're still seeing competing offers. You know, it's not 30, 40 offers, you know, maybe 3 to 5 is what we're seeing. We are getting into some tougher looking investor style properties. We're the only ones jumping into the market at that place. We've got a couple in the last couple of weeks where we haven't been in competition. We even got them $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 under list, but the values are still relatively the same. So nothing's really coming down. People just aren't getting that 30, 40,000 over value, we'll call it, like they were before. It's kind of plateaued a bit, but even if we are getting it $10,000, $20,000 under list, the values that we were paying before when people priced it low, it's, you know, pretty much the same price point wise. So we'll have to see what happens for the spring market. Again, you know, we are having a lot of inventory come on for the spring, but it's not unheard of the amount that's coming on. It's pretty standard to see this influx in inventory, but maybe some of the buyers are drying up as well with the interest rate hike, because it seems to push out people the higher their interest rates go. Some people could be sitting on the fence as well. So that's kind of the update for Barrie. We'll get into Orillia next. So Orillia is always a little bit behind Barrie because it's further north. So it takes a little longer to de-thaw than Barrie does. So usually people aren't going all the way up to Orillia from the city, you know, until more April, May. So we'll probably watch for more of an inventory increase later on into the spring. Price point wise, it really has been pretty straight across the board. So nothing's really changing drastically yet. But again, keep an eye out when the inventory starts to spike. Probably mid-April, beginning of May, you'll probably see that a little bit of a decrease in for the spring market. A number of active listings. Again, December, January, very low. You can see it start to increase. And again, March, April, and May of last year, substantially higher. So again, inventory, we're going to see it increase probably April and May, a lot higher than what we're seeing in March. And because it does take a little while for that market to heat up, just because it is a bit further north. So nothing out of the ordinary. We are still seeing softening in the amount of offers coming in. Some people are still pricing a $750,000 house at $599,000, getting 30 offers. You know, that's not really changing, but the values, the sale prices are constantly staying pretty similar. You know, when we're putting in offers, if we lose or win, we're within $10,000 to $15,000 of what we think the value is. We're not seeing that $100,000 over. We haven't seen a townhouse sell at that price ever since the dawn of time. It's pretty consistent of where the value ends. It just depends if the client wants to price it a little higher and just have no offer date, or they price it lower, get an offer date, and kind of shoot for the moon. It's a bit risky at this point to do that. We're seeing a lot of softening up that way. Unless you've got a nice prime family home, we're still seeing quite a bit of action in that, or anything entry level as well. So your townhouses and stuff like that. Now that, you know, it's not 30 people competing, it's 5 or 6. It's it's still busy in that space for sure.
Colby, do you see a lot of people canceling listings and relisting because they're not getting the number they want?
Yeah, we've seen, you know, your offer dates 7 days from when you list. If they don't get their number that they want, they just pull it. We've seen that quite a bit. That's been something that's been happening quite a bit in all marketplaces. Innisfil, Barrie, Orillia, people are still shooting the moon and they're not getting it. So basically their agents are probably selling them big time, and then they're not really producing because the buyers are a lot less than they were 2 months ago. So
it takes time for sellers to adjust their expectations. So, you know,
yeah,
if things were really hot and it was working, it's going to take a little time to transition away from that, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, there's lots of inventory coming on for spring. So once everything kind of catches up in the next month, it'll be interesting to see what happens there. But as you can see from this chart, the list to sale price ratio, everything's a lot of stuff still going over list. But value wise, you can see it's pretty well has been consistent for the last 3 months. It hasn't really fluctuated that much in the Orillia area. So Innisfil, these are based on detached homes, not on the water. They do have a lot of waterfront properties that tend to skew the data upwards. So this has these out of them. Again, here prices have kind of came down a little bit, but they haven't really dropped at all. So we haven't seen drastic changes yet. We're starting to see the increase in inventory, but inventory compared to inventory last year, it's nothing crazy. So, we might be in a bit of a lull right now, just coming out of March break. All those kinds of things might be affecting, but once we get in the full swing of the spring, summer market, we can see that inventory get chewed up pretty quickly. If they put interest rates up again for the Q2, it might affect some more people, kick more buyers out. They might see an adjustment in price. But I honestly think you'll probably have to do almost four interest rate increases per year for the next 2 years until things start to really be affected by the interest rates, just due to the complete lack of supply. Because there's a lot of, go ahead.
And well, even considering like you still have foreign buyers, people who are immigrating to this country with enough money to buy cash, like there's so many other things that even adjusting the interest rates won't change.
Yeah.
I think our biggest problem, and people who have watched the other updates might have heard me say this, is just that Canada as a whole, we're immigrating 400,000 a year, and we can only produce 200,000 new houses a year. So it's an engineered by the highest level, issue to create a supply crisis with housing. So that's built into Canada for the next several years. This is why it's hard to say. Like I hear people say, "Oh, the market's gonna go down, or it's gonna crash or correct," and it very well may. But in what world can it stay down unless we change some of these policies? And even if the interest rates do go up a bit, I'm with you. I think that it's gonna take a bit of time before those values plateau and start coming back down.
And with inflation as high as it is now as well, usually hard assets increase in times of high inflation as well. So that's kind of the other side of the coin too.
Right.
They're printing more money. NDP Liberals just teamed up. So they're probably going to be spending lots of money together. That's going to increase inflation even further, which should put hard assets like real estate up even higher.
Exactly. And again, symbolic interest rate hike of 25 basis points when, they're admitting to 5.8, I think is the level of inflation they're admitting to, which means really inflation's well over 10%. It's an interesting challenge. Of course, you want to be owning real estate, but there's a lot of things like as an investor, we've had to think about all the maintenance you got to do on that. You almost want to be like stockpiling a few extra shingles, just in case, because as these supply chain issues keep happening, and they are happening, I'm in the construction business. Those are also going to compound and add to this challenge of getting new housing. So not to go too much on a tangent here. I'll let you continue on through our numbers.
Average list of sale price, very similar to all the other ones. People are pricing values low, pushing them up higher. So you can see that here, pretty consistent since end of the late last year. Price point wise, it's all been relatively close, and people are consistently listing around the same level as well. So they're still playing that game, but it's starting to peter out pretty quick in our neck of the woods. So just be picky of what you want to put offers in. The competition's still there, but just know your numbers and know your limit, play within it really when you're buying an investment property is what we always tell our clients, and we'll luck out and get one eventually. And there's no need to get emotional and pay hundreds of thousands of dollars over list like the craziness we've seen over the last 2 years. So, all right. So that's kind of the stats for the Simcoe County areas that we target. Some big news that came out here last week in New Tecumseh, Alliston area, which we pointed to at the map at the very beginning. The Honda plant is receiving a $1.38 billion investment from federal and provincial level governments. They are going to be they produce obviously cars. They're going to be only producing electric-based cars by 2035. So they're converting basically all the Honda plant to create all green vehicles. They're doing an addition on it, I've heard as well. Everything's been kind of hush-hush. We don't know too many details on it. We just know that they're dumping a lot of money into this area. This is a huge employer for Simcoe County, not just for New Tech Alliston. There's lots of people that live in Barrie, Essa, Innisfil. All these people all work at the plant. It's a huge employer in the area, probably the biggest in Simcoe County, I would think. So this is big news that there's going to be lots of new jobs, lots of innovation. These are going to be good, high-paying jobs as well. All right, I want to go over a couple things. We keep getting clients coming to us. As most people know, I'm a real estate agent by trade, and we also run a construction management company as well. So, through these podcasts, our networking, and our different marketing avenues, we get a lot of phone calls. And a lot of phone calls that we've been getting in the last little while have been people have been told they can do a garden suite in the backyard. They've been told they can make it a fourplex, but their agents aren't doing the right amount of due diligence on this ever-changing red tape that keeps being put onto us. So I just really want to touch. I've had 3 calls in the last probably month about people that bought properties firm, no conditions. They want to do this, they want to do that. And I do a quick rundown of the property, do our due diligence on it. I can do it in 15, 20 minutes online. And there is no chance that the city or the municipality will let them go ahead with what they were told they were able to do. So I just want to touch on these three items here. So conservation authorities, historically designated areas, and scope site plans for the garden suites in Barrie. We finally got the legislation on that. So I just want to touch on these 3 things, educate everybody a little bit on what to look for, because there's nothing worse than spending $100,000 over a list on this perfect property. You think got your numbers all lined up, and then there's one little thing that you didn't look at, and now you can't do it. And we've been trying to help out a couple people in this situation, but some of them have literally just had to sell their house, sell the property again due to the fact that they just can't do what they want, and they'll be in a negative cash flow position if they just do 2 units instead of 4 or 3 or what have you. So I just want to touch on these 3 items quickly, and then you guys can kind of get a good gauge on what to look for, help qualify properties a bit better. So conservation authorities, these are basically regulatory bodies that pretty much supersede municipalities. So they are there to protect heritage features. And by heritage features, I mean trees, streams, runoffs, floodplains, waterfront, anything like that. So Barrie brought in a new rule back 6 months ago when the whole garden suite debacle came out, that you cannot have any second suites or garden suites in any regulated area in the conservation authorities. So you can't build in those areas. So if your property touches it or the regulated area is on your property, you can still build it depending on what type of regulated area it is. But there is a very quick mapping search you can do. So if you're in Barrie, you've got to search Lake Simcoe Conservation Authority in Ottawasaga Valley. There's a digital map that comes up. You can type in your address. If you see any red on the map around your address, do more due diligence before you put in an offer. We've had a couple people buy in floodplains, didn't even know that this was a thing, wanted to put in a garden suite in the back. And this is basically a secondary permit you have to get before the city of Barrie would even look at it. So these guys have to give their stamp of approval before building, before zoning, before anything. You need their blessing. So very, very important. Check this out. We've had a couple people get caught on this, and with a property you can basically do nothing with. Even if it looks high, dry, and beautiful, do it. You'd be surprised what they define as a runoff or a creek. It could be a ditch that's maybe wet once a year, and it could be a runoff in their mind, and you have to go through their hoops. So be cognizant and aware that this is something. People are getting burned on this. They're getting more and more strict on it, especially Barrie, Innisfil. Orillia is not too bad for the conservation authorities. They're just basically got about 100-foot setback from the waterfront is where their touchy area is. But Barrie and especially Innisfil, they've got a lot of wetlands, floodplains, waterfront. So definitely check out these websites, check out the mapping, do your due diligence, and don't get caught not being able to do your project the way you want because of these guys here. They're there to protect the birds, bees, and the trees. So they get their say before the municipalities.
Yeah, and just to add to that, like I've personally dealt with this in the London area, and yeah, for us, it was anything you needed a minor variance for. If you needed it for anything, it was like an immediate no. If it conformed with the existing bylaw, sometimes you could get it done,
Yeah.
but all the more reason work with a professional. Like no, work with somebody who knows that area. I think that's so critical. If you're going to be buying in these types of areas, you want to work with somebody who knows how to get it done.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And these guys, it's like getting two permits too. So your timeline wise, you have to get their permit and then your building permit or zoning, then building, depending on what kind of project you're doing. So timeline wise, holding cost wise, extra engineering wise, you got to play by these guys' rules. So just making everybody aware of that. All right. Historical areas. So this is something specifically for Barrie, I just want to touch on. So if you look at this mapping here, it wasn't very clear. This is the best one I could get, so work with me here a bit. So this is Allendale area. So this is Lakeshore going all the way around here, and then Bayfield Street going up this way, just to kind of get everyone's bearings. This is the 400. So originally, pre 18 months ago, Barrie had one historical area. It was called Allendale. It's right here. It's by the train station. They have now dropped 5 more historical designated areas. So you can see most of the downtown has this historical designation, and it is another layer of work that you have to do. So depending on what you're doing, this could be a big hindrance timeline wise and cost wise. So just want people to be aware of these newly designated areas. So this came back into effect, I think it was February of last year, these historical areas here. So they quadrupled it. Now, this whole area that's now historical is where you have your RM2 zoning. So this is multifamily zoning in this areas. So a lot of people are buying lots, tearing down houses, putting up semis, putting up 3 to 6 plexes. We're doing all those types of projects in these areas. And we now have to do a further step of going through historical homework, basically. So if you're doing a garden suite outside of Allendale, it's not too bad. You just have to make it a little historical on the outside. Allendale, they make you jump through a couple more hoops because they have a historical society back by them. Not the end of the world for the garden suites. If you're getting into tearing down a house and creating semis, I'm going through this right now. You have to get this historical evaluation done on your floor plans. And it's very timely. Finding a professional to do this, it took me 6 weeks, and I've called every historical person across Ontario just to look at my plans, and no one could get to it for 3 months. And that's how busy these historical people are. So just be aware for the infill guys. If you're in the downtown core, you're doing your semis, you're doing your 3 or 4 unit townhouse infills, if you're doing your additions for your multifamily, and you're in these areas, this was dropped in early last year, and not a lot of people know about it. Again, we've had a couple people get caught on it. We're learning the process of it right now. But timing, if you're building brand new, it's quite costly just because these professionals are very bogged down. And of course, there's added monetary part of it as well for the extra studies and changes and stuff that you have to do to your plan to make it more historical to meet these new neighborhood guidelines. So it's an additional step. So basically, you got to do your zoning permit, your severance. Now you have your historical stuff as well. So just another layer of red tape in these areas. And again, I know there's a lot of infill guys that target these areas, so just keep an eye out for that, and watch out, where you're buying if you're in these areas.
Colby, just to comment on that, I think that's an opportunity because a lot of people look at this and they see these areas as oh, I don't want to get into that. I'll just go look in another area. And I've seen that, I've experienced that. So if you're seeing stuff like this as an investor, if you feel comfortable with it, go dig in, meet with the people in the city, the municipality, and the regulatory bodies, talk to them, become friends with them, become acquaintances with them. And you all of a sudden have an angle that other people don't have. And all of a sudden
Oh,
you can look at properties and know them and know what you can do better than others can. And that could lead to you getting insane deals. And I'm speaking from experience on this. Sometimes what appears as a hindrance can actually be a huge opportunity. That's all I wanted to include about that.
Yeah, no, that's a great point for sure. Just make sure you know your timelines, and you trump up your holding costs a little longer, because it is timely to get that stuff pushed through as well. So, all right, the next thing I wanted to talk about again is the Garden Suite Scope Site Plan. I know we were chatting about this last in November. The legislation has been dropped now, so we know what's going on. The biggest hindrances that we're seeing right now are the tree studies that they want to do. You're going to have to really work with your neighbors and gauge what trees you can save, which ones you can't. If you have trees overhanging your property from your neighbors, it's going to be extremely difficult without their blessing to build underneath the canopy of that tree. And we have to provide studies basically saying that we're not going to be hurting any of the trees. Based on that is one of the hindrances that we're seeing. Fair enough, everyone loves to save the trees for sure, but something to be aware of. Some stumbling blocks that people are missing as well is, yes, if you click on the scope site plan for the city of Barrie, it's a 15-page document. You can go check it out. If you have any questions, give us a call. You have to be, the maximum height of your garden suite can only be the maximum height of the existing dwelling. So if your property is slanted like this and the main house is here, your garden suite still can't be taller than the house that's down here. So we've had someone got caught on that as well. So be very careful with the trees, the canopies, the lay of the land. You got to make sure that the garden suite's not overlooking it. There is some zoning bylaw verbiage on that as well. So a couple points there to make sure people, they're doing the due diligence. There's a lot of agents that weren't going through the big battle like we were. We weren't at council, aren't up on these things, and they've just heard the old way and still think it's the old way. So make sure you do your due diligence. Again, we've had a couple people caught on this, and unless you have your neighbor's blessing on some of this tree stuff, you're not going to be able to do it. They can basically ask you for money or do whatever they want, or just blatantly say no. And unless you get their blessing, you're kind of screwed. So just make sure you do due diligence. Make sure you've got, what you're doing in that regard. Because again, a couple people, beautiful big lots, but their neighbor's got a big tree next door and the canopy goes over 90% of their lot. And you can't build a garden suite on it unless your neighbor gives you the blessing. So we've had a couple people burnt there. So I just want to make sure people are aware of that. The height variation as well is something people are getting burned on. Just to touch on the scope site plan again, they did take out basements in Barrie. Maximum square footprint of 800 square feet was capped. Those were kind of the biggest changes, in addition to the setbacks. So originally, the original setbacks from the rear lot lines were 2 feet and 2 feet from the side yard lot lines. Barrie increased them from 21 feet off the rear and 10 feet off either side. So you're looking at properties, you'd want to look at properties with at least 150 feet of depth and at least 50 to 60 feet of frontage. 60 would be ideal for minimum, I would think, but you can squeeze it in on a 50 by 150 still. So just want to let everyone know, those are the things that we're seeing people buying, hoping they can do things, but these 3 items we're seeing people get tripped up on. So just be aware that these things are happening in Simcoe County, and just wanted to educate the people on that. All right, so the next part here, just a bit of a shtick on what we do. So I'm Colby Marshall as a real estate agent. We also own a construction company called MCIS, Marshall's Complete Investment Solutions. We provide end-to-end project management. So not only can we buy the properties for you as realtors, we have a whole construction company that we can build all your units for you as well. We've done additions, semis, custom homes, anything you want, we can do it. We do everything from design, planning, engineering, construction, property management. We've got paralegals and everything for dealing with tenants, complete turnkey system. We specialize in basically everything listed here: lot severances, infills, land assemblies, land development, garden suites, second suite conversions. We can do it all. we use a project management app, which is called Builder Trend. So this app goes right on your phone and is updated as we update all your invoices. You get pictures of updated work, and it goes right onto your phone. So you can see what we're doing and how we do it. Also, you can brand the app to your company. So if you're doing joint ventures, if your ABC company is your company, we can brand it to you, and you can actually pass that on to your JV partner, and they can be getting the updates as well. So a lot of people like that. We are a Ontario registered builder. So, if you're getting into building bigger projects, garden suites in Barrie, you do have to be Ontario registered. So make sure you ask these questions before hiring a contractor. Are you Ontario registered? That gives you a 7-year warranty on your product. That is mandated by the Ontario government. Are you fully insured? We pay a stupid amount of money for insurance monthly for our builder's risk, fire, liability, all that kind of stuff as well. So make sure you're asking these questions when you're looking for a contractor, because if anything ever goes wrong, you want to make sure you have your butt covered with that insurance. Next thing I wanted to touch on is we run the Barrie arm of RPI Education, and we are glad to say that we are having in-person events again in Barrie. Next one's May 11th. So if anybody has any interest, come out networking. We're going to have some guest speakers out learning about construction side, investments, training, coaching, everything as well. So if you want to come out, meet everyone face to face, belly to belly. I know it's been a while since everyone's done that. We'd love to have you out. If you want, here's how to get a hold of everybody for that. And next one's May 11th here in Barrie. I run that with Monica and Vaughn Jazik. So great people. And we run the Barrie arm, Simcoe County arm. And we love to have you out. If you want to learn more face-to-face, that's definitely an option as well. Thanks, guys.
So Colby, since you're all wrapped up through the presentation, I did just want to ask you, kind of knowing what's happening in the market right now, what's the best angle for people to take if they want to make cash flow in the Barrie market? Because there's some people that are set on that market. Maybe they've been wondering, scratching their head like many. How do I make these numbers work? How do I make these expenses work in cash flow?
Yeah, we're doing the second suites with garden suite conversion. So we're seeing usually on average about $6,000 a month income coming in from 3 units. Right now in the Barrie area, Orillia is relatively about the same. Our average cost of acquisition in Barrie right now is probably $850 to $900, where Orillia is probably $750 to $800. Okay. We're putting in second suites in the main houses, garden suites in the back. It seems to be the biggest thing that's still pulling people in and still able to cash flow.
So what would you be all in for then if you're buying around $850?
We're probably about 140,000 ish, depending on cost to do the duplex conversion, depending on how much work needs to be done. That's all in. We're doing everything for you. And then the garden suites, depending on where you're building, the most expensive garden suite we're able to build in Barrie without basements, I think we're up at about $280 right now. So that's 800 square feet with a crawl space underneath for all the utilities. Up in Orillia, we've got about 4 different variations of garden suites that we do. There is slab on grade, which is your cheapest. You're around your low 2s. Then you can put a crawl space underneath there for all your utilities, get a little more space upstairs. Then we can do 800 square feet with a full finished basement. So then you're up and around 3.25 for those ones. And then we have the big Mac Daddy one that we can do, which is the maximum finished square footage. In Orillia, we can actually get a story and a half plus a full finished basement. So we're getting 2,100 square foot garden suites. These are 4 bedrooms plus a den, 2.5 bath. They're massive, and those are in the low 4s right now. So we're pretty excited to see those come to fruition. And we got about 10 of them lined up that we're doing already this year. And we've got capacity for probably another 7 or 8 more. So we're excited to see what's going to happen with those big garden suites. They're pretty cool.
Yeah, you can get some pretty impressive numbers, I'm sure. And just like crunching the numbers on the Barrie thing. So it kind of seems like you'd be in around 1.25 to 1.3 million when you're all said and done. And right now you figure getting about 6,000 gross income. Have you worked backwards on the numbers on that? Does that break even?
Yeah, we're breaking even. We're seeing definitely some cash flow in that. We're seeing reappraisals 1.3 to 1.4 in the Barrie area. Orillia, we were the first 3 garden suites being built in Orillia, so we haven't actually had any refis up there yet. So we're waiting to see how those shake out. But the ones that we're finishing up in Barrie, we're seeing 1.3 plus for a lot of the garden suites.
All right, well, that's a lot of really great information. So Colby, thanks so much for doing this. Really appreciate you sharing and allowing me to be your guest host here today. So how do people reach you if they want to connect with you about being their realtor, or if they want you to help with the build, or all of the above?
Yeah, for sure. We have our website, colbymarshall.ca. There's a lead capture form there. My phone number is 705-794-8373. I'm a phone kind of guy. Just give me a call anytime. I love to help people out. And we can do it that way as well. So check us out at colbymarshall.ca. That's my personal number. Feel free to call me anytime, and we can help you from there.
All right, that's awesome. Really appreciate that. And everyone, let Colby know what you think about the episode in the comments below. Feel free to ask some questions there too. And thanks everyone for watching. Tune in for the next market update, and we'll see you then.
Perfect. Thank you.